This is Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Mitch Lafon.
Welcome to Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon and to some very special exclusive YouTube content from me. I have got for you Philip H. Anselmo. He's got a new album called Choosing Mental Illness as a Virtue, and that's part of Phil Anselmo and The Illegals. I will not give you a whole long speech at the beginning. Let's just get right into Phil. It's always a pleasure to talk to Phil. He's got a lot of thoughts on a lot of stuff, and including in this one, he started giving his opinion about gun control and other things. So let's just get right into it. Here is Philip H. Anselmo. We are speaking with singer Phil Anselmo. The new album from Phil Anselmo and the Illegals is Choosing Mental Illness as a Virtue. Phil, always a great pleasure to chat with you.
Great talking to you, my friend. How you doing?
Good. Surviving the snow and the cold of Montreal, but otherwise doing perfectly fine. All right, so let me talk to you about this project because there are so many projects on the plate, from Scour to Superjoint to what's it called, N minor.
Yeah.
So let's start off with this one. It is the second Illegals album. Talk to me about putting it together and sort of how do you sort of choose what songs goes on this and not on Scour and not on Superjoint and not on Down? I mean, help me out. How do you decide which project is which project?
Well, first and foremost, it's the expression of music that divides or separates musical genres and whatnot. So each band has its own identifying genre, so to speak. So the Illegals, to me, is more delving into the guts of a big tip of the hat to, I would say, Australian death metal. And extreme stuff that I've really grown up with. Plus, this choosing mental illness as a virtue, there's a lot of old riffs on there that I dragged through time from about 1996, 97. Into this, when we started doing the Choosing Mental Illness as a Virtue record and recording, which started, I guess, 2014, raw stuff, till a little later. Really got serious probably in 2015. But I dragged these riffs with me, and we reworked, obviously, a shitload of them, and the guys that I have with me now in the band, the leftover guys from the original Illegals, Blue, Jose Manuel Gonzalez on the drums, has grown up with me over the years, and really did a great job, and he keeps getting better and better. Hardly the finished product, but none of us are. So he keeps improving, though, and it's improving within this particular band and group of people and musical expression. But I gotta really shout out the other guy that played with me on the first record, Walk Through Exits Only, Steve Taylor. He switched from bass to guitar on this album, and man, Steve, whether it be with the Illegals or in Minor and even in Superjoint, Steve is awesome. He's awesome to collaborate with. He's awesome as far as input goes, and he's just a great motherfucker to work with. Brilliant songwriter as well. And then, of course, the newer guys, Walter Howard and Mike DeLeon, Walt Howard on bass and Mike DeLeon on guitar. A lot of people in the, I guess, American underground, and not to take the wild world of internet knowledge for granted, but the underground, I would think, throughout parts of the world, Mike plays in 1,000 different death metal bands, and Walter plays in a few death metal bands, but they remain loyal to this particular, what we're talking about, the Illegals, and have so, waiting on me for a long time. Because really, like I say, this album is old for me, but it's new to the public, and that's kind of going to be the case moving forward throughout this whole next year, because, like I said, the new Illegals, specifically Choosing Mental Illness record, is made up of a lot of older stuff, and thematically, whether it be N minor or this other project that I did in 2014, it's dated material brought up to date within the last 5 years or so, to a degree, and reworked and all of that good stuff. But really, it's a lot of songs that have grown up with me, as far as stuff that I've written over the years, and reworked different, I guess, during different periods of my life. So, with Choosing Mental Illness as a virtue, I wanted, of course, the music to be extreme and metallic and all of those things, but really, it does touch upon a lot of bands that are severely important to me. Once again, a big nod to the Australian death metal scene, I would say of 5 years ago, and
yeah, and by the way,
early Morbid Angel, and even even hardcore bands, but big time on the early Morbid Angel, and that should be kind of evident.
Yeah, and you just did a tour that included King Parrot, which was one of these great death metal bands out of Australia. When you
they would probably correct you and say grindcore, Australian grindcore. No, they had no influence on me on any of these records, but they are great.
Yeah,
great band and great people.
Yeah, absolutely great people. When you mention that some of these riffs are older, are we talking just older in the sense that they date back to the 2013, 2012 when the first one came out, or are these things that date back to the 90s or the early 2000s? How far back are some of these riffs?
Was I not clear with what I just said? I said that a lot of these riffs I drug back, let me use the correct word, dragged, past tense, these riffs with me from 1996 is when I originally wrote them, 96, 97. So yeah, there's a lot of old riffs there mixed in with riffs that I guess were concocted, newer riffs around 2000, between 2014 and 16. So yeah, it's a mishmash for sure.
Yeah, that sounds great. Now, I obviously missed the 96 thing.
I was rambling for a while.
Well, vocally, you've done this sort of hard singing. This it's got to be rough on the voice. As you and I both age, because we're both from 1968, is there anything that you have to do to keep the voice up? Or are you losing some around the edges? How do you sort of keep that power vocally coming out? Because it's got to be a workout.
Nah, man, it's easy, actually. Death metal singing and black metal, I'll just say vocals, death metal vocals and death metal, vocals and black metal vocals, that any of those styles, even hardcore vocals, are simple and easy, and so easy to do compared to actual singing and having to be in key and in voice night after night after night after night. Real natural singing as we know it as old guys. You take a guy like the cat from I forget his name escapes me, but like the singer from Chicago. What that dude does is so much harder than what David Vincent has ever done with his voice, ever, So there's your comparison right there.
Yeah.
How that applies to me, I'll never know.
Yeah, I don't know if you mean Peter Cetera or the other guy, but that's some.
I'm talking 25 or 6 to 4.
There you go. Yeah, that's a great song, by the way.
No shit, it's awesome. I'm on a Chicago trip right now. There's power in horns.
Yeah, there is, and I'm friends with one of the guys. They're such a great band. But talk to me about.
Tell them I said hello. I'm a big fan. I love them.
Oh, absolutely, I will. Will do.
And James Gang right now. James Gang, so fucking badass. God.
Well,
I'm on a James Gang trip.
Well, in fact, let me talk to you about this, because you've got this project called N Minor, which is you sort of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're going to go back to, Nick Cave and Sisters of Mercy and that sort of more. Do we want to call it goth? I don't know if I want to call it goth.
I know that's been thrown around. That's been thrown around a lot, and I know it's come directly out of my mouth because I'm trying to find a comparison, and those are sad comparisons because Nick Cave, on a production level, on a lyricist writing level, on an artistic level, is so much more than I will ever fucking be, that it's not even fair to compare in that sense. So, people just need to hear N Minor before I can even describe it. All I can say is clean guitar, singing in a natural way, which would be baritone for me, stacked with multiple layers of harmonies, guitar parts, but I will say the most interesting thing about playing the N Minor stuff is the power in less, the power of playing in a restrained way, or singing in a restrained, controlled, delicate way, as opposed to pummeling the strings or pummeling the throat or pummeling the drum set. It's even Jimmy Bauer, who played all the N Minor stuff. He had to step back and really play with finesse instead of slamming the drums as hard as he can, because Jimmy is very heavy-handed, so to speak. He hits the drums really hard. That's what his entire style is built around. But within that style, he's a very solid drummer, and I'm talking in terms of metronome-type playing. He keeps great time. So with that element in place, having great time, but playing in a restrained way. And you apply that not just to drums, but to all the instruments, like purposefully not overplaying for the sake of overplaying, and just letting the notes fall into place, the songs flow together without overthinking too much of anything, but still coming out with something that has depth to it. It's very raw, unpolished. If there was any category I'd like to stick it in, I would say none, but if there had to be, I guess I'd say it's anti-pop, but
which is almost alternative, right? I mean, but
sure. I mean, it's an alternate to anything, but when people say alternative, they get a specific picture in their mind. You can't do that either. So, really, it's like until people hear it, digest it, understand it, read the lyrics, get into it a little bit, then they'll understand the sentiment of the band. And I'm sure a lot of questions will be raised, like, what the fuck does he really mean by this or that? Which, of course, I won't answer. I'll definitely leave up to the listener and the ingester to figure out for himself. But, there's certain things I guess I could pinpoint as far as an accurate description of what I'm talking about. So, or what I mean with certain meanings of titles and song titles and certain lyrics even. But for the most part, I'm going to leave that really open for interpretation.
You have in the past...
individual interpretation, that is, pardon me.
Which, by the way, is how all music should be taken. But you have in the past...
right.
You've said that every solo effort should be different and that you don't want to regurgitate a damn thing you've done in the past. Is there a time, because every sort of project that you've been involved with from now, it's always been pummeling, Down has been pummeling, Superjoint is pummeling. Is there, and you just mentioned James Gang in Chicago, do you see yourself at a point having absolutely no boundaries and just saying, hey, you know what? I want to make a straight ahead, just rock and roll album, or I want to make a hit, I want to have piano on this one, or do you see yourself moving in a direction where you can sort of do anything and fans will accept it?
I've already done it. It's just, it's just that the general public have not heard it yet. And that's why it's kind of like I'm tired of sitting on all of this music that does kind of strip away just the one expression of I've done many expressions, and not to, I guess, desperately try and discredit what you just said by certain bands being pummeling, but you mentioned Pantera. Well, I've got to point out that Pantera had its Cemetery Gates, it had its Disloves, it had its Delicate Moments, even up to songs like Pens or Floods or something like that off the Great Southern Trendkill. Suicide Note Part 1. Down, Jesus Christ, I mean, fucking, from Stone the Crow to whatever, to me that's pretty straightforward rock and roll without being absolutely pummeling necessarily. So I think I've touched on a lot of stuff, and you get you're gonna get one package every time. I'm not gonna change outfits. I'm not gonna become this alter fucking, what is it called? Alter ego, alter fucking personality because it fits the music. I'm gonna be myself, but the fact that music is so vast, and to think that a musician wouldn't explore and play the types of music that he enjoys is ridiculous, really, because I think that there are probably a lot that do, but you just maybe it's I don't know. It's hard for me to view because I don't view myself as others do. And some people might hold me in this regard to where I am their Ozzy Osbourne or something like that of their generation. And look, man, I'll be the first to tell you, just even saying those words and make me absolutely uncomfortable, because I don't think my name should even be in the same sentence as Ozzy Osbourne as far as greatness or achievement or anything like that. So I see myself as a fucking just another music nerd. Yes, I've seen success with apparent bands, but I guess I would want people to look at me at the end of the day as way more than just a heavy metal vocalist. And if I can never escape that, I'm not trying to escape that. I love heavy metal. I love all kinds of heavy metal. So that's fine. I've explored that in a recording sense. Now I am going to release an updated version of music that has been with me longer than Pantera, longer than maybe even some of my first garage bands. I'm talking about stuff that I messed around with when I first got a guitar when I was 9 years old, and was just messing around and found particular patterns that have stuck with me over the years, and I've made them either more intricate or incorporated them rhythmically, which is a whole different conversation, I would think. But either way, I'm putting out stuff that has been with me for a very long time, and it might be surprising to some ears out there, because I mean, I know for a fact that if when you're hardcore Pantera fan hears other bands that I do, like this weekend I'm going to Texas. Shit, I leave tonight to do 2 Scour shows in Texas. When your average Pantera fan hears Scour, they think I'm just making fucking noise for the sake of noise, when that's not true at all. It's just a different type of music. And it might sound noisy to your ears because the listener their ears are conditioned with music that is appealing to them. Like you had mentioned earlier, listening to music is an individual experience, so much so that it can be likened to food that you like or dislike. It's like it depends on the taste buds, on the tongue. You're either going to love it, hate it, or be indifferent to it, or think it's okay, or it's terrible but not horrible. There's that wide. Now this is where a true spectrum comes in. music is a true spectrum, and shit, man. I think people really were to investigate and be honest with themselves about what types of music they like. Like I could tell you right now that Christmas music to me is enjoyable. There's something about it. And early in my life, there was something depressing about it. But maybe there's a correlation there of depression meets some of the beauty behind it. You know, it's like, it's interesting. You know, the note selection to me is interesting, especially certain pieces. I don't know the names of all the songs, but shit, I'm just generalizing here, man, and that's just the tip of a very large iceberg, man, of vast musical fucking preferences that exist, you know, and for me specifically, and I'm sure for individuals out there that will be honest about what floats their boat and what doesn't.
Yeah,
musically, that is.
The you know, with social media, one of the most annoying debates is when people say, you know, I love just Kiss, or I love just Pantera, or I love just this, and you can't. Those are such silly. I mean, you can love Kiss, Pantera, and Duran Duran and be perfectly, you know, these debates. You recently teased out the Pantera home video number 4. What are the plans?
I didn't do any of that shit. I don't pay attention to what they do. I know Pantera is a business, and for me, I need to be part of that business because I am that business. And what I mean by that is, it's not, I didn't mean it as in I am the business. Don't take it like that.
No.
That's not how I meant it. I meant it, well, for the listeners, I just want to make sure I'm not taken out of context like the internet loves to do. So my point is, I am part of the remaining 3 guys in Pantera that must do business together. So, therefore, that is my only connection to anything Pantera, aside from the shows I've played and the records I've done with that particular band. I have done the only logical thing I can possibly do with my life, and that is take my feet and move fucking forward. Because I find mulling around in the past for no damn good reason at all other than to stay regressive. I find that whole practice regressive.
Yep.
And I am not a regressor unless I'm doing it musically. As in life, I am the type that needs to keep moving forward and keep moving and keep creating, because that's who I was always going to be anyway.
Well, in fact, let me ask you about that, because you have moved forward with Down, with Superjoint, with Scour, with.
But remember what, when you say that Down was created in 1991.
True, but
that's Pantera. That's all over Pantera's territory. Superjoint created in the middle 90s, 94. Christ Inversion, 94. Fucking, yeah, I could keep going, I guess. Necrophagia, 97, 98, something like that. I mean, I've done so many different bands. I wasn't the singer in every band, but I played guitar, put the records out, and performed on the records. So it was straight up.
But here's my question.
I wasn't gonna be stopped doing other things. There's no, I was never going to stop. So anyway, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, but I'm just curious because they've had all these different band names. Why have you not just said, now that Pantera is over, now that Down is over, I am Phil Anselmo, solo artist, and I'm going to put out all these different sounding records as Phil. Why have they always sort of fallen under the name of a band and not just say, hey, this is me, this is Phil, and this is what I do, and so be it? Why is there Scour? Why is there Superjoint? Why is there and the Illegals? Why not just, this is Phil?
Because the first thing that comes to my mind is, I guess there's a couple different things, but really the initial thing that just jumps into my brain is that when you start a band can be examined by members, and there's certain, to me it's like I've had my day in the fucking sun, and if I can bring in musicians that get to appear on a record with me and do their fucking thing and get their foot in the door for better gigs or different gigs, or get a spotlight on them that shows, look, this is a special person, this is a special type of talent here, no matter what, whether it be drums or guitars or whatever. To me that's important, helping out my fellow musician that has not had the great super duper not luck really, but fortune that I've had, good fortune, great fortune that I've had with success in music. So and I take that, man, as it's overwhelming, man, just to even think of it, because once again, I truly feel like no different than another person in the audience looking upon a scene where there are great standout bands that are to be appreciated throughout this thing called history and time. I mean, pick any era and whatever, and I'm probably a fan of something of that era. So another thing that comes to mind is, like, if you take a band like Down or Superjoint, where each band is made up of other bands, or there is such a lengthy history of the band, and you still have fun playing in that band and still enjoy making that music, then, there is a fan base to consider, especially with Down, Superjoint to a degree, for sure. Yep. You want to keep true to the musical expression itself. So there's that responsibility, this feeling of responsibility there. But to me, I understand where if I said, okay, this is Phil Anselmo, okay, here's one record, and boom, it's blasting Australian-tinged death metal, and then the very next record came out, and it happened to be the guys in Scour who, and I will say, the big difference with Scour is I have zero input, for the most part, of what music gets written, because they live in St. Louis, the majority of them, and they write the stuff, they send it to me, and I respond like, sounds good, I I can knock this out quick, and that's that. You know, it's about as simple as that. For a project like that, where I have zero input on the musical process, for me to call it Philip H. Anselmo and then also have the extreme blast beats, the harsher style of vocal, to me, I can see the clear difference between Scour and the Illegals, big time difference. As far as musical expressions go in sub genres. But for me, number one, it wouldn't be fair to call it Philip H. Anselmo and here's this record with this other group of people who happen to be Scour. That would be disingenuous. It would be unfair to the people who actually wrote the fucking music and just chose me as a vocalist, you know, so there has to be distinction there. By all rights, Scour is Derek Engelman's band, you know, it's his baby, so to speak, that he got some really awesome musicians to jam with, and the Jarvis cousins or whatever they are, those crazy fuckers, and we got a new fellow on guitar. I just met him this weekend, named Mark. Really, really nice fellow, and so there's bands like that, and then, you know, all right, when it comes purely from me, like a band like N Minor, where there's really no one I'm putting on display that hasn't been in other bands with me for a long time or play currently with me, like, say, in the Illegals. They're not necessarily showcased in any spectacular spotlight that's going to catch someone's eye and say, wow, this is just some outstanding musician in this project. You know, and Minor is the type of band where everybody contributes, and even a lot of my older songs that I brought along the way that are decades, years old, still, when I get with this N Minor band, they become more than they were in the past decades. So it is its full and whole honest musical expression that should be separate from just my name in general, because once again, I think N Minor is so unique amongst releases for the general public, yet so very much known in my circles and in my life and in those closest to me, that it's bizarre that it's going to be new to this just millions of people, but it's something that's been kind of a under the roof, in-house, I guess, fun band to play in. Very, very, very fun and interesting and different band for a lot of guys to play in, because they are stepping kind of out of their boundaries there, but well within their boundaries too, because it's not like the musicians I have in this band are not fans of, I guess, this is hard to put, man. This is so hard to say. They're fans of many different styles of music and can appreciate something so straightforward in its approach, but also something that is very far removed from the inner workings of, say, a heavy metal project or a purely Black Sabbath influence project or a hardcore project or anything like that. Yet you still have a lot of the same musicians that really, in their heart, playing this more restrained style. There's a very unique reward that comes with that. And that's sitting back afterwards and listening and going, you know what? This sounds unique. This sounds different. This sounds special. And I guess that's really the best way I can put it.
Is there a point where you want to put out an album with just your name and just say, this represents me, not the drummer, not the guitarist. This is my musical vision 100%, and if there's cha-chas on it or congos, so be it. I mean, is there a point also where there is a solo album in you that's just musically different?
It's already been recorded. I'll be honest with you. That shit's been done for 2 decades, if we want to go that route, because, man, I'm sitting on more material that I could put out tomorrow that would be absurd for people to hear. They'd be like, what? Wait a minute. This is the man that we thought we knew, but we did not know at all. And that in itself is interesting, because I think, matter of fact, it's been in the works now for quite a while. What I want to do is grab a lot of my older, way older, and I'm talking like middle 80s on, like when I first got my first 4-track and started fucking around. The results were actually strangely unique enough to where it's like, wait a minute, this is really fucked up and different. So what I want to do is grab certain pieces for certain expressions, and I'm going to put out, I guess that's a interesting thing that you say. When is there going to be a pure Phil Anselmo solo album release? And I guess my first knee-jerk answer would be when I'm playing absolutely everything. And there, like I say, there are creations that I've done in the past where it is purely me. So I am going to release...
Like a box set?
I could do it that way. Or I could get creative with it and make a seamless, insane record with maybe a few modern tweaks as far as adding some vocals here or there, because there's definitely some parts written many decades old that it's purely just music. And it's music that I definitely had planned on singing over, but never got around to it. So the option is there. So that I may sing over some of it. I may talk over some of it. I may add a vocal over some of it, and then let something that had been recorded 3 decades ago just be in the very next moment of listening. So we're talking about
so much.
Another nod towards choosing mental illness as a virtue, literally, when we're talking about putting out a record like this, because I'll say it, a lot of the solo music that I've made over the years is flat out wacky and absurd. So, such is the way of life, such is the way is the kid, and such is the way is things shall go. So it would only make sense. And it would also, I think, to get really to the meat of your point and the meat of your question, I have been battling with what band should I, if I make this record, if I put out all this old stuff, what moniker should it come under? And to your point, maybe this would be the record that would just be flat out Philip H. Anselmo solo record. Boom, here you go.
Yep.
Here it is, So I think what you're talking about has already been written to a large degree. I think that some work could be put in the near future, not to modernize, but to fill in some blanks that I guess in theory would modernize, but still the blanks need to be filled in. So it's something to work on and something to work towards, but it will not be it will be a difficult listen, and it will be tough to ingest, and I think that's great. I think that's the only way to go, especially if you want to claim any type of originality, so to speak, within a piece of work that is a solo record that breaks and shatters all framework that surrounds you. And I think that I have the tools in the toolbox to smash that fucking framework to fucking smithereens.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to challenge the
rest
listener.
in peace to the guy from the Smithereens, another great band.
Yeah, another great band. And speaking of great bands, by the way.
Great band.
Absolutely. Just quickly, I first saw you in 91 or 92 with the Killer Dwarfs and Skid Row. And I was telling the Killer Dwarf guys that I was going to be speaking to you today. And so Russ and Daryl of the Killer Dwarfs say hello. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, man. What a wonderful, sweet bunch of Canadians, huh?
Yep. Oh, absolutely. And
just so wonderful, so sweet, so nice. And I don't think I don't remember. The singer and I share the same birthday.
There you go.
And we share that birthday with one Mike Tyson as well.
Yes. Wait, Russ's birthday, I think, is June 30th, something like that.
That
right?
is my birthday. That is Mike Tyson's birthday.
See, that's a triple crown of greatness right there. Phil, we said 20 minutes. We're at an hour or just under.
That's fine.
So I want to thank you for today. Always a great pleasure talking to you, and it's nice to get just a different perspective on you and your career. And I love our chats. They're just great, and so thank you.
Oh, man, I think it's your fresh approach. I think it's your ability to sit back and listen, whereas a lot of people would be giving me a lot of, yeah, in between every sentence, which does fuck with one's train of thought. And I think that it shows a great professionalism on your end to let and allow a guy like me that is long-winded, because when you ask me questions like you do, there are a lot of blanks to fill in. There's a lot of nuance to give, and that's a credit to you and a credit to the openness of your platform. So I thank you, my good sir, and like I always like to say, it takes two to tango, and we are good dancing partners.
Yep.
And I tip the hat to you, my friend.
Well, thank you. And I will just say on my end, I just find it important to listen, and I also find for the listeners, they're tuning in to hear, I interviewed Bruce Dickinson recently, I interviewed you, and they're tuning in to hear those guys. They're tuning in to listen to you. They're not tuning in to me prove that I'm some kind of smart ass. And so that's why you just let the guest talk. That should be the rule for every interviewer. This is the way I feel,
And this is also your wonderful age showing, where I guess it's within the fabric of our generation, especially in the wake of seeing how the modern generation deals with each other and how quickly modern technology, once it opened up and geniuses thought, let's put in a comment section. Let's put in clickbait material just for money or time spent on the website or whatever. I guess that's how revenue is picked up online. I'm not positive, but there are more distractions in today's
world. It's all analytics, right?
World and technology, but it's a technology. I guess what I was getting around to was it came upon everyone so fast that, of course, the young are going to gobble it up because it's not only a social need, it's a must, it's a demand, it was taught in school. I wasn't taught anything about computers in school. I'd left school long before, or way before. I think I'd missed. I think when I was leaving school, or when I quit in my senior year, they were just talking about having computer savvy classes being added to the curriculum. And
well, yeah.
So I think that the young really latched on to the culture of online life quickly. It overwhelmed them without them knowing it, and then it took guys like us, especially guys like me. I can't speak for you because I'm sure, and I'm pretty sure because I'm a late comer still to the game of it all, of the internet, its inner workings, its underbellies, its applications and its uses, what you choose to engage in and what you don't choose to engage in. And I find that any medium online no matter how benign it may seem, there is a part of it. And all right, case in point, I'm a boxing fan. Okay, I want to learn more about the heavyweight division. Oh my God, the rabbit hole will go down deep. And next thing you know, you're charting heavyweights from all over the globe that normally on any other day you would, or in any other life, like a boxing fan that I am, I've got telephone books that used to come out, telephone-sized books, like big city telephone-sized books, that used to come out once a year called the Ralph Citro books. And it was a guy named Ralph Citro who would compile all of these boxers from all around the world in every weight class and put out one thick book per year, their record, where they're from, their size, their weight, who they fought, et cetera, everything that you would want to know about a fighter on face value. And now today, that's like 2 clicks away on a website, and then you are stuck there. So you find yourself in this dilemma of, I am sitting here wasting valuable time when I could be writing music, I could be reading something that benefits me, I could whatever. I mean, sure, there's always time to fuck off and see what your football team's up to, aside from every Sunday during football season. But goddamn, it's like with the comment section, which is ridiculous, with the media on a political level leaning so hard left or so hard right that you gotta look at both sides to even feel where the moral compass should lie, or a free-thinking mind should lie. I think that if I had to be stuck on some political scale, I would be easily on the left, and probably surprisingly so on the left on a lot of topics, like gun control or something like that. I loathe guns. I loathe war, and there's many reasons. It was instilled in me from a young boy because I grew up with casualties of Vietnam in my house, in my first memories of childhood. So I had the Vietnam War and all of its horrors explained to me as a young child in his earliest memories. So I'm not a gun guy. I realize America's gun problem is impossible to roll back, but would it be better if there were less guns on the street? You fucking ain't right. So anyway, that's just one little thing. But to me, if the wings are hard left and hard right, they're the same bird, man. That's the same bird to me. I don't want either one. They're both authoritarian and ridiculous in their outlooks, So it's like fucking... I guess the point I'm getting at is even the news that we get is partisan. It's leaned towards one way or the other, and it's maddening, man. It's like, when are we going to get back to the truth? When are we going to get back to thicker skin and approaching topics of the truth that might be uncomfortable, but still we can find common ground within this framework called truth, instead of tiptoeing on eggshells and shit. There's a lot of fucking subjects out there that could be touched upon. It might be uncomfortable for fucking everybody, but I think that what the hard left does with trying to put everybody in a box, and so does the hard right. Fuck them too, man. But, you know, if skin color is any graph or any measure of anything, then count me out. Count me out of that stupid shit. We should be, I think, to me, the arguments from the hard left and hard right are an insult to our collective intelligence at this point. I think that we should be discussing far more advanced topics than shit that happened hundreds of years ago, if not 50 years ago, if not 10 years ago. I get it. I really get it. Things take time. All great empires failed for a reason. And then there are some great empires that remain because they reform themselves. And not all empires, as a matter of fact, I can easily say all empires, all islands of occupation, all have unjust and hideous bloodshed and bullshit and underhanded business afoot upon their lands. It's happened. It is happening. Now, what does Joe Blow, you and I have to do with that? Well, not much, man. As individuals, I think that we need to stay staunch in our individuality and learn how to stand on our own two fucking legs before we can offer help to anyone else.
Yeah.
Or, you know, we need to worry about ourselves more than some giant collection of people with the same politics. I find the whole thing repugnant. I find the whole thing ridiculous. And it is. And it should be pointed out.
Yeah, absolutely. Phil, great pleasure speaking with you today. Absolute great pleasure. And good luck with the new album. And hopefully we'll see you on tour in Montreal in 2018.
I'd love to do it, man. Hopefully Canadian law will let a guy like me over there and to scream some offensive stuff.
Sounds good. Always a pleasure. Talk to you soon, Phil. Thank you.
Much love to you, buddy.
Cheers.
You're listening to Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Rock Talk.